yourself pondering the nature of life and death, wondering if the entire framework you've been taught might be incomplete or even misleading? It's a radical thought, one that suggests everything you believe about life's timeline could be flipped on its head. Traditionally, the human journey is presented as a linear progression. You are born, you live, and then you die. After death, according to common belief, something else begins an afterlife. Yet there is a growing perspective that asks a simple yet startling question: what if you're already in that afterlife right now at this very moment? This idea isn't meant to shock for the sake of shocking. It's meant to invite a new depth of inquiry. It suggests that the reality you perceive as life might actually be a space of karmic refinement, designed not to torment you, but to remind you of a deeper truth. From your very first breath, you are told that this world is the starting line, a place of ongoing preparation for something else. You are trained to see your final breath as a threshold that separates the known from the unknown. But if that threshold was misunderstood, if the real shift happened long before you ever realized, then it stands to reason that everything you consider life might simply be a denser, more tangible realm of lesson and evolution. This notion often aligns with experiences gleaned from those who report near-death encounters. In countless accounts, individuals who brushed against the edges of mortality describe vibrant continuations of awareness. They speak of the sensation that time can fold into itself, that identities can dissolve, and that one can revisit personal events from a higher vantage point. Instead of condemnation, these experiences often involve immersion in the emotional repercussions of their actions, almost as if they are reliving the impact their choices had on others. Far from being a cosmic punishment, this re-examination appears as an opportunity to see how every interaction, no matter how small, holds significant weight in the tapestry of existence. In this way, death isn't the rigid endpoint we assume. It's more of a pivot point, an energetic redirection that reveals how consciousness persists beyond physical boundaries. When you consider this perspective, the chaos, heartbreak, beauty, and synchronicity you encounter in daily life no longer feel so random. In fact, they start to look like a perfectly orchestrated lesson plan. If the spark of consciousness transcends physical death, then every moment you live now is a chance to refine your soul. Ancient spiritual traditions have long whispered these truths. Gnosticism, for example, taught that the world as you see it is an intricate illusion, a labyrinth designed to shake you awake. Hermetic principles declare that what happens on the physical plane is a reflection of higher realities. Meanwhile, modern science has begun to detect strange hints of a malleable universe where observation affects outcomes pointing toward a participatory reality. Yet something is missing from purely scientific narratives: the dimension of the soul, the timeless core of awareness that suggests you are more than just a body and brain. As these insights converge, they hint at a revelation that is both simple and profound. The boundary between life and death is thinner than you think, if it exists at all, and your current existence may very well be a continuation of a journey that did not begin at birth nor end at death. Imagine pausing your daily routine, stepping out of the rush of commitments, distractions, and obligations, and asking yourself in total sincerity, am I sure this is the beginning? Could I already be in a realm beyond what I used to think of as life? If that question sparks discomfort or intrigue, that's good. Growth often arises from the moments that push us out of our comfort zones. By challenging long-held beliefs about the line between life and death, you invite a deeper exploration into the architecture of your being. What if the afterlife we think lies ahead is actually a dimension we entered the moment we were born? Perhaps the physical realm is akin to a complex classroom or even a stage meticulously set up to mirror your karmic patterns, your fears, and your unhealed wounds in hyper-realistic ways. In this scenario, the daily pains, frustrations, and triumphs you experience become lessons in the grandest sense. They're not random occurrences. They are lessons with your name on them, specifically tailored to expand your consciousness. Consider how you've been taught to move through life you follow. Cultural norms, chase success metrics, accumulate possessions, and then eventually face an uncertain end. This linear narrative often glosses over the reality of spiritual growth as if your development is secondary to the pursuit of external milestones. But if your actual objective is soul-based evolution, then all those external achievements and defeats start to look more like catalysts than endpoints. They serve to illuminate where you're still bound by illusion, urging you to see the patterns you repeat and the pain points you carry. Notice how the same kinds of people or problems show up in your life again and again. They push your buttons. They might evoke anger, sadness, or fear. Yet they also serve as mirrors reflecting aspects of your inner world that remain hidden in plain sight. This cyclical process, where we keep facing the same core issues, is often referred to as karmic looping. Instead of viewing these loops as punishment, you can see them as repeated invitations to make a different choice, to transcend the blind spots that hold you in place. Historical and spiritual texts have provided frameworks for this classroom model of existence. The Tibetan Book of the Dead, for instance, is often interpreted as a guide for navigating various planes of consciousness. But many mystics argue its teachings also apply to the living. It doesn't just describe what happens after the physical body fails. It describes the mental and emotional states you cycle through continually long before actual death. Similarly, Gnosticism posits that salvation arises from gnosis or direct knowledge, which involves realizing the divine spark within. Through that lens, what you experience as life is not the ultimate reality, but a reflection, an elaborate stage set for you to awaken to a higher truth. By studying these traditions alongside modern quantum insights, you begin to see that consciousness itself is not confined by physical birth or death. The boundary is more like a shift in perspective, a recalibration of awareness. Once you accept that you can start to consciously shape your journey, rather than merely surviving it, you may wonder if I truly am in a karmic simulation of sorts. What does that mean for my daily life? Far from being a nihilistic outlook, this view offers empowerment. It implies that every experience, from the most mundane morning routine to the most heart-wrenching loss, offers a potential stepping stone toward greater understanding. Suffering in this context isn't meaningless torment. It's friction that polishes the rough edges of your soul. Each heartbreak unveils your attachment and vulnerability, pointing out exactly where you need healing. Each moment of bliss conversely reveals the joy and love that emerge when you align with your deeper nature. If you dare to see it this way, life's random events transform into meticulously orchestrated lessons that speak directly to your unique spiritual curriculum. Furthermore, the entire array of emotions and experiences they serve as raw materials for your transformation. In spiritual circles, people often speak of raising your vibration, but what does that really mean? It means noticing your automatic reactions, your limiting beliefs, your knee-jerk fears, and then doing the hard work of transmuting them into understanding compassion, or at least honest inquiry. This process is something you can only undertake when immersed in a realm dense enough for cause and effect to feel very real. Here in the physical domain, there are genuine consequences to your actions. You hurt someone and you see tangible fallout. You show kindness and you witness a ripple effect. This direct feedback loop is the cornerstone of the teaching mechanism, ensuring that lessons aren't just theoretical, they're embodied. But many times we overlook this feedback because we get caught up in surface-level explanations. We blame others, or we attribute events to mere coincidence or random chance. Yet if you observe closely, coincidences can start to look eerily meaningful. You might meet a stranger at exactly the right moment, or experience a vivid sense of déjà vu that suggests something deeper is in play. In these instances, the veil of ordinary perception lifts, and you catch a glimpse of the underlying architecture, an architecture that lovingly nudges you toward remembering who you really are. Such phenomena hint that maybe the entire universe is a conscious tapestry interacting with your intentions, your energy, and your sense of identity. Of course, this raises the question of whether you're truly free if everything is so precisely orchestrated. Paradoxically, the design of this karmic environment appears to honor free will at every turn. You're always given choices, even if they feel constrained. You decide how you respond to heartbreak, how you handle success, how you treat yourself and others. Over time, these choices weave into patterns that either liberate you or keep you looping. The realm you are navigating isn't static. It's a playground of possibilities perpetually shaped by the consciousness you bring to it. Rather than restricting your free will, it gives you an infinite playground to learn the power of your choices. Consider for a moment the metaphor of a lucid dream. In a regular dream, you simply react to the unfolding storyline, unaware that you're the one generating it on a deeper level. You might encounter frightening or bewildering scenarios, but you remain trapped in the dream's logic. The moment you become lucid, however that moment you realize, wait, this is a dream and I have agency here. Everything shifts. You can shape the environment, direct the plot, and learn from the symbolism. Life can be approached with a similar lucidity. Once you suspect you're already in a kind of afterlife, one with a karmic or evolutionary purpose, the entire narrative structure becomes more malleable. This shift can be both exhilarating and daunting. Exhilarating because it implies you have more influence over your reality than you previously believed. Daunting because it also means your intentions and beliefs have real creative power. In the unawakened state, it's easy to cast blame elsewhere. You can say that your job, your relationships, or your upbringing is at fault for your current predicament. But upon awakening, that kind of externalizing no longer holds. You recognize that how you interpret and respond to each circumstance reveals your state of consciousness. The so-called tests or challenges present opportunities for introspection. Are you reacting from an old script of fear or shame, or are you responding from a newfound sense of wholeness and trust? The feedback is instant, even if the karmic ripples take a while to become visible on the surface. Near-death experiences frequently serve as a catalyst for this realization because they they momentarily detach individuals from the physical anchor of the body. In that suspended state, people often report panoramic life reviews that highlight interconnectedness, how your thoughts and deeds affect not only yourself, but ripple out into the wider collective. Upon returning, many feel compelled to live more authentically. It's as if, once the illusion of finality is lifted, you gain the freedom to live for what truly matters. Whether or not you've had a near-death experience yourself, you can learn from those who have. They return with insights about the continuity of consciousness, the importance of compassion, and the notion that we are indeed more than our bodies and our immediate circumstances. But being more than your body doesn't mean neglecting or despising the physical realm. Quite the opposite, it means honoring your earthly experiences as the perfect crucible for learning. If you were only spirit, you wouldn't experience heartbreak or disappointment in the same palpable way. You also wouldn't feel the visceral joy of comforting a friend or achieving a hard-won personal transformation. This density, this vividness is your teacher. When you start to see it as such, every day becomes a sacred unveiling, and every interaction becomes a chance to practice love or fear expansion or contraction. By living with that awareness, you begin to dance with the karmic energies, no longer passively subjected to them. You become a conscious co-creator of your experience, awake in your own afterlife dream. One of the most challenging aspects of accepting that you might be in the afterlife already is the confrontation with pain and injustice. It's easy to ask, if this is a loving, orchestrated realm, why do such terrible things happen? That question, while valid, can be approached with a new lens if you see these events as catalysts rather than random cruelties. This perspective is not about dismissing suffering or trivializing it. Instead, it's about recognizing how adversity often ignites hidden strengths and deeper compassion. It's the friction that pushes the soul to evolve. If everything were comfortable and pleasant, most of us would have little incentive to question our assumptions or dig into our unhealed places. When you look at pain as a karmic mirror, it provides insights into collective and individual imbalances. For instance, a systemic injustice might reveal a widespread shadow in need of healing, something that society has ignored or repressed for too long. On a personal level, betrayals or heartbreaks can show you where you still hold limiting beliefs about your worth or capacity to love. It's like the realm is programmed to keep pointing out these blind spots, not as punishment, but as a form of cosmic compassion. The system wants you to succeed. It wants you to recognize yourself as a powerful creator who, when conscious of your own influence, can steer your destiny and uplift others in the process. Yet, we often remain in the passenger seat, believing that life is something that happens to us. We focus on the external, on weathering storms, rather than understanding why they arose. This is where mindfulness and self-inquiry become priceless tools. Each instance of suffering can be approached with questions like, what is this teaching me? What belief, fear, or unresolved experience is surfacing right now? How can I respond from a higher vantage point instead of my usual survival mode? Admittedly, this approach demands resilience and a willingness to be uncomfortable. However, it also promises the kind of soul-deep growth that redefines your relationship with pain. And in this karmic playground, you're never alone. The sense of isolation you might feel is itself part of the illusion. In times of crisis, synchronicities often abound. You might run into a person who offers exactly the insight you need, or stumble upon a book that articulates your fears with eerie precision. These coincidences hint at a connected web of consciousness that's always trying to guide you towards self-realization. The question is whether you're listening. Are you attuned to the gentle nudges that whisper, "Wake up, remember what you really are"? Even doubting can serve a purpose, because in doubting, you're challenging the illusions. As you weigh perspectives and question your reality, you sharpen your discernment, which is another key aspect of your spiritual evolution. The end goal, if we can call it that, isn't perfection, but conscious participation in this grand design, recognizing that you are both the student and the teacher in an ongoing process of becoming. Modern science, interestingly enough, has begun to edge closer to these ancient spiritual revelations, albeit from a different angle. Studies in quantum mechanics demonstrate that matter behaves differently when observed, suggesting that consciousness interacts with physical reality in ways science can't fully explain. Meanwhile, simulation theory proposes that the reality we experience could be a sophisticated illusion, a digital construct of sorts. The missing piece in these discussions is the element of soul or consciousness that predates and will outlast the physical form. Spiritual teachings fill this gap by asserting that what quantum science sees as a mystery is simply the recognition that awareness itself underlies all phenomena. You might notice moments in your life that point to this perspective. Perhaps you've had spontaneous flashes of insight or intuition that defy logic, or you've experienced synchronicities so precise they feel orchestrated by an unseen hand. These instances momentarily break the spell of mundane existence. They whisper, "There's more here than meets the eye." While mainstream narratives tend to dismiss these experiences as coincidences or quirks of the mind, they hold transformative potential if you take them seriously. They challenge the assumption that you exist in a lifeless and different universe. Instead, they suggest a co-created dance where your inner state resonates with external events. Yet there's also a grounded practicality to all this. Embracing the idea that you're already in the afterlife doesn't require you to float away on a mystical cloud. Quite the contrary, it asks you to engage with your life more deeply, more consciously. If every circumstance is a clue guiding you to higher awareness, you'll want to be present enough to decipher it. That might mean developing a meditation practice or simply integrating moments of stillness into your day to tune into what's beneath the surface noise. It might mean adopting new habits that align with the vibration you wish to embody, habits that support empathy, self-reflection, and authenticity. As you start interpreting life events through this lens, you may also notice your relationships evolve. When you see another person as a fellow soul navigating the afterlife, it becomes harder to dehumanize them or treat them as mere backdrops for your personal story. The realization that your actions carry karmic consequences encourages you to practice kindness and accountability. You recognize that every encounter, whether pleasant or challenging, is a karmic interplay, an energy exchange that offers both parties an opportunity to grow. This mutual revelation can deepen bonds, turning friendships, family connections, and even romantic relationships into sacred spaces for collective awakening. The sheer magnitude of this perspective can be overwhelming at times. You might doubt whether you're truly up to the task of conscious co-creation. You might falter or fall back into old habits. But these moments of struggle don't negate the bigger truth. They highlight the areas where your growth is still in progress. The realm you occupy is patient, and it will continue to present you with lessons you have yet to master. In that sense, you're perpetually held by a system that cares more about your ultimate liberation than your comfort. All these converging ideas, ancient wisdom, modern science, near-death insights serve to illuminate a single core. Principle, consciousness, is primary. It sets the stage upon which matter, time, and even the concept of death unfold. If you anchor yourself in this realization, the fear of death loses much of its bite. Death becomes less of a curtain falling on a finite existence, and more of a shift in the medium through which consciousness expresses itself. In practical terms, recognizing this can embolden you to live with greater intentionality. Why delay pursuing your passions, sharing your love, or healing old wounds when you see life not as a fleeting opportunity, but as an ongoing exploration of being? That shift in perspective also invites a reevaluation of your priorities. If the material world is a mirror reflecting your beliefs and emotional patterns, then changing external circumstances requires changing the internal blueprint. Instead of endlessly rearranging surface conditions, jobs, relationship status, you can look inward to alter the vibration you bring to each moment. This introspective pivot might involve sustained effort, releasing old traumas, questioning conditioned beliefs, and consciously cultivating states like gratitude or compassion. Over time, your external reality begins to mirror those shifts. The synchronicities multiply, meaningful coincidences become more frequent, and you encounter opportunities that resonate with your heightened awareness. You realize that the line between the inner and outer worlds is far more blurred than you once believed. Moreover, this understanding softens the need to compete or control. When you trust that there is a larger orchestration at work, you become less attached to forcing outcomes and more curious about how things will unfold naturally. Your ego, which thrives on the illusion of separateness, starts to lose its stranglehold. In many spiritual traditions, this process is akin to the dissolution of egoic consciousness, revealing a deeper unity with all life. Ironically, living in what might be called the afterlife can make you more compassionate toward others, because you see that every individual is grappling with their own illusions and karmic loops. Instead of judging, you might find yourself offering empathy, or at least a reserved kindness that recognizes the shared nature of the journey. Stepping fully into this perspective doesn't require you to deny the rawness of human experience. Pain, joy, anger, ecstasy, all of these are vital data points. They provide the texture of the lesson plan. Your job isn't to transcend emotion entirely, but to allow it to guide you toward deeper self-awareness. Emotions become wayfinders, pointing out where you're still stuck in illusion, or where you're genuinely aligned with love and truth. The realm offers countless tests designed to wake you up. The more you pass these tests by choosing conscious responses over habitual reactions, the more you find that you're living in alignment with a reality that transcends the simple birth-death dichotomy. You're alive in a space that feels infinite, dynamic, and profoundly interconnected. In other words, you're discovering what it really means to be in the afterlife right now. Now that you've you've seen how your experiences might be part of a finely orchestrated karmic unfolding, the question naturally arises, how do you navigate it more skillfully? Many of us spend years running on autopilot, following routines, reacting to triggers, and clinging to beliefs inherited from family or society. We might catch glimpses of deeper truths, but these insights get lost in the churn of everyday obligations. That's where conscious living comes into play. To live consciously is to actively participate in your own karmic journey. It's to question your automatic patterns and examine the deeper motivations behind your decisions. If the premise is correct that you're effectively in a form of afterlife where karma is not retributive but educational, then each moment becomes a classroom session. You can choose to be an attentive student or remain in a state of unconscious repetition. Being an attentive student means engaging in practices that expand self-awareness, such as meditation, journaling, or therapy. It involves seeking out teachings that resonate with your inner knowing, maybe reading spiritual texts, listening to lectures, or joining communities of like-minded souls. However, the real test isn't just absorbing information. It's embodying it in daily life. Knowledge must transform into wisdom through application. For instance, it's not enough to read about the importance of forgiveness. You have to practice it in relationships that have caused you pain. It's not sufficient to intellectually grasp the idea that your thoughts shape your reality. You have to intentionally observe and redirect those thoughts when they spiral into negativity. This is where the rubber meets the road in your journey from unconscious habit to conscious mastery. Additionally, consider how near-death experiences often return with heightened gratitude and clarity about what truly matters. They frequently realize that love, compassion, and genuine connection hold much more value than external achievements or possessions. While you might not have had a near-death experience, you can still integrate that lesson. Reflect on where you invest most of your energy. Is it in proving yourself to others, accumulating wealth, or chasing fleeting thrills? There's nothing inherently wrong with material success or enjoyment, but if you overlook the deeper currents of growth, you miss the essence of why you're here. By recentering on spiritual maturity, on kindness presence, and authentic self-expression, you align with the flow of karma that aims to refine your soul, not imprison it. Certain spiritual lineages talk about the dark night of the soul, a stage where old paradigms break down and your inner landscape feels empty or chaotic. This can be terrifying, but it often precedes significant breakthroughs. Think of it as the realm's way of cleansing outdated software so you can install a more evolved operating system. The confusion and despair serve a purpose. They dismantle illusion so you have no choice but to seek a deeper, truer foundation. Although it might feel like a personal apocalypse, it can be a powerful rebirth, ushering you into a clearer understanding of how and why you're navigating this afterlife-like existence. Karma as a concept is widely misunderstood. It's not a cosmic system of punishment and reward so much as a mirror reflecting your state of consciousness. In other words, your external circumstances often echo the internal landscapes you cultivate. If you carry deep-seated fears or resentments, you'll likely attract situations that poke at those wounds. This isn't the universe being cruel. It's the universe teaching you where healing is needed. Likewise, if you nurture compassion and generosity within you, begin to see more supportive and benevolent patterns emerge in your life. That doesn't mean you'll never face adversity, but you'll respond to it differently. Challenges become stepping stones, not tombstones. One way to visualize this is to think of your life as a giant feedback loop. The energy you put out in thought, word, or deed eventually circles back to you in a form that's uniquely tailored for your evolution. This cyclical design might explain why certain themes recur in your life. Notice the patterns, repeated relationship issues, recurring financial struggles, or persistent health concerns could all be signals from the system indicating that you have unresolved lessons. Once you face these issues head-on, the loop can shift, allowing you to move on to the next stage of growth. This process doesn't have to be dramatic or mystical. It can be something as simple as noticing how often you speak negatively about yourself or others and making a conscious effort to change that narrative. When you step back and see karma in this light, it's liberating. It means you're not condemned by some arbitrary cosmic judge. Rather, you're enrolled in an advanced course where your life experiences function as personalized lessons, each designed to guide you toward greater alignment with truth and love. In many Eastern traditions, this is the essence of karma yoga, turning every action into a path of spiritual growth. The key is mindfulness. Without mindful attention, you remain in a cycle of action and reaction, reacting unconsciously to life's stimuli. With mindfulness, you gain the ability to respond consciously, breaking old loops and creating new, more harmonious ones. Furthermore, the karmic lens can shift how you interact with others. If you realize that every person is wrestling with their own karmic curriculum, it becomes more natural to respond with compassion rather than judgment. This doesn't imply you tolerate harmful behavior or fail to set boundaries. On the contrary, you can maintain discernment and self-respect, but you do so without hatred. You recognize that each soul is on a journey, even if that journey includes mistakes or harmful choices. Adopting this stance changes your energetic output from one of antagonism to one of understanding. Consequently, you contribute to a collective uplift because your consciousness directly impacts the shared field in which everyone operates. And within the overarching simulation, this afterlife, you're navigating the ripple of your compassion or animosity extends far beyond your immediate circle, influencing the resonance of the entire network of being. Another profound aspect of this afterlife perspective is the recognition that consciousness persists beyond bodily constraints. If birth and death are but transitions, then what you call you must be more than the body. This is where the mystery intensifies for many people. How can you simultaneously be living in a physical dimension, subject to aging and decay, yet also exist as an eternal stream of awareness? One way to reconcile this is by understanding that identity is layered. You have your physical identity, your name, appearance, cultural background, and then you have a deeper identity as pure consciousness experiencing itself through these temporary forms. This layered identity can become evident during altered states of consciousness, whether through meditation, prayer, near-death experiences, or even certain psychedelic journeys. People often report feeling a unity with all things, or perceiving a vast web of interconnected light. Even on a more mundane level, you may have had moments of such deep presence that the boundaries between you and your surroundings seem to blur. These experiences hint that consciousness is not confined to individual bodies. Instead, it interacts, through countless forms, each reflecting a facet of an unbroken whole. But why would an unbroken whole fragment itself into individual lives, each apparently separated by skin and personality? One compelling explanation is that these separations allow for experience and learning. If you are perpetually aware of your cosmic unity, you might lack the friction necessary for growth. By temporarily forgetting your infinite nature and engaging in the dense, tangible lessons of the physical plane, you gather insights that simply can't be acquired in a state of perpetual oneness. From that angle, the illusions of separateness and linear time become essential parts of the schooling process. You enter this realm, face heartbreak, encounter joy, and navigate countless challenges to remember, often painfully, sometimes blissfully, that you are both an individual and part of a greater field of consciousness. In day-to-day life, holding on to this dual awareness can be tricky. You might feel glimpses of your transcendent self in moments of awe, only to get pulled back into petty dramas and everyday stresses. But each time you remember, even briefly, that you're more than the sum of your worries, you anchor that larger identity more firmly into your being. Over time, these moments accumulate, shifting your overall perspective. The illusions lose some of their power to enslave you emotionally. You can still feel sadness or joy, but you experience them as passing waves in a larger ocean, not as absolute states of existence. This shift doesn't make you apathetic or emotionally numb. Rather, it roots you in a deeper sense of trust and equanimity. You become aware that no matter how turbulent the surface gets, the depths remain calm and unchanging. In essence, by remembering your eternal consciousness, you navigate the material dimension with more grace, as if you're a traveler fully engaged in the journey, yet never forgetting you're ultimately just visiting. Now let's consider the role of illusions more thoroughly. Illusion, in this context, doesn't mean everything is fake or pointless. It means that much of what you take for absolute reality is actually shaped by perception, beliefs, and cultural conditioning. From the moment you're born, you inherit societal stories about success, love, morality, and even the concept of death. These stories function as filters, distorting raw experience into something that fits preconceived narratives. However, when you adopt the viewpoint that you're in a karmic simulation, you start to challenge these inherited stories. You realize that certain cultural beliefs may have been perpetuated simply because they serve the simulation's purpose to keep you immersed until you awaken. Take, for instance, the belief that you must chase external validation to find happiness. This common cultural narrative can trap you in cycles of overwork, competition, and anxiety. Yet from a karmic simulation standpoint, such a belief is an illusion designed to reveal your deeper needs: self-love, authenticity, and spiritual fulfillment. The moment you see through the illusion and stop chasing external validation, you break that karmic loop. This doesn't mean you stop enjoying accomplishments. It just means you no longer derive your sense of worth solely from them. You place your well-being on a foundation that doesn't fluctuate with every success or failure. Illusions also play out in relationships. Perhaps you believe that another person is responsible for your happiness, a belief that can lead to codependence and disappointment. The karmic simulation cleverly leverages such illusions. By making you experience the pain of unmet expectations, it nudges you to see that genuine fulfillment arises from your own alignment with love and consciousness. Once you grasp that you no longer try to control or possess another person to feel whole. Instead, you meet them as a fellow traveler on the path, each learning from the reflections offered by the other's presence. At a collective level, illusions manifest as societal norms or power structures that perpetuate division and conflict. Wars, discrimination, and widespread apathy can be viewed as mass karmic lessons. While these events cause enormous suffering, they also bring underlying issues to the surface. They force human communities to confront their shadows, prejudices, greed, and fear, and thereby present opportunities for collective growth. This doesn't excuse harmful actions or imply that everyone's suffering is a simple teaching tool. Rather, it points to a cosmic mechanism where even the darkest chapters serve as a mirror for humanity to see itself and ideally evolve beyond destructive patterns. When you adopt this broader view, you gain agency in how you respond to illusions. Instead of railing against the world or falling into despair, you recognize your power to break free from the illusions in your own life. Each time you dissolve a personal illusion, you slightly shift the collective field, making it easier for others to do the same. This is how awakened individuals throughout history have led revolutions of thought, culture, and spirituality. By seeing through a lie, be it about social hierarchy, personal limitations, or cosmic indifference, they pave the way for a new way of being that resonates more closely with universal truth. As you deepen your understanding of karma consciousness and illusions, you may come to a point where life itself starts to feel more magical, more vibrant. Situations you once dismissed as coincidences now appear as synchronicities, moments of direct communication between your inner state and the external world. These events aren't random, they're potent reminders that you're engaging with a living tapestry of consciousness. In fact, synchronicities often intensify when you're on the cusp of a breakthrough or major life decision. They act as signposts guiding you to pay attention, to look deeper into your own motives and feelings. Part of this magic is learning to trust your intuition. In a world dominated by logic and rational analysis, intuition can be undervalued. Yet intuition is often the voice of the deeper self, the part of you that remembers what conventional thinking has forgotten. It can guide you away from pitfalls or toward paths of accelerated growth. Tapping into it might mean learning to quiet your mind, to sense the subtle currents of energy that swirl around your choices. It can also mean embracing periods of uncertainty, realizing that not all answers come neatly packaged in 5-step plans. Sometimes you have to leap before the net appears, trusting that your deeper knowing will carry you safely. Another element of life's magic in this view is the elasticity of reality. You might have noticed how time can seem to warp, moving more quickly or slowly depending on your state of mind. Or how, when you're in a heightened emotional state, events in your external environment can seem strangely attuned to your energy. These are not just flukes. They suggest that consciousness influences the fabric of reality. While it doesn't mean you can simply will your way out of any situation, it does imply that your mindset and emotional tone significantly shape your experience. Learning to harness this principle rather than being at its mercy is a hallmark of spiritual maturity in this realm. Moreover, the recognition of life's inherent magic and meaning can shift your relationship with daily stress. tasks that once felt mundane or burdensome might take on a new sense of purpose when viewed as opportunities for mindfulness and presence. Even the repetitive chores or challenging work interactions become training grounds for honing patience, compassion, or creative thinking. This shift is subtle but profound. Instead of living for the next vacation or day off, you find richness in the current moment, no matter how ordinary. This is a form of liberation in itself, a testament to how your internal state can radically alter your perception of the external world. All these layers, the heightened awareness of synchronicity, the trust in intuition, the flexible nature of time, and the enchantment of seemingly mundane experiences, paint a picture of a reality far more interactive and alive than conventional wisdom would give you believe. If you truly are in a karmic simulation, an afterlife that you entered at birth, then everything you encounter is not just a static piece of scenery. It's part of a cosmic puzzle, tailor-made to draw you closer to your ultimate potential as a conscious creator and a loving presence in the universe. Of course, as you explore this expanded sense of reality, resistance can arise. You might find old parts of yourself clinging to skepticism or cynicism, insisting that life is merely random, that consciousness is just a byproduct of brain chemistry. In many ways, these doubts are healthy. They prevent you from naively accepting any new concept without discernment. Yet if you probe beneath the surface of your resistance, you might discover fear or an attachment to the comfort of familiar narratives. If you let go of the linear life-death model, what else might change? Your relationships, your goal, your very sense of identity could be up for re-examination. That's a lot to handle. Resistance also can manifest externally. Friends, family, or colleagues might not resonate with your new perspectives. They may challenge you or dismiss your experiences as fanciful. While it can be tempting to argue or withdraw these encounters, themselves are part of the karmic tapestry. They present an opportunity to practice compassion and patience, both toward yourself for navigating new territory and toward others who may not be ready for such viewpoints. Rather than forcing your beliefs on them, you can demonstrate through your actions and emotional equilibrium that an alternative way of living is possible. Over time, your calm persistence may plant seeds in those around you, even if those seeds take time to germinate. The journey, therefore, is both deeply personal and intrinsically collective. Your awakening has ripple effects, not because you proselytize, but because you become a living example of someone who has stepped off the treadmill of unconscious living. This shift can be as subtle as responding to anger with empathy, or as dramatic as overhauling your entire lifestyle. Either way, the energetic signature you carry into your interactions changes, and that change reverberates outward. Even if you never see the full impact, trust that your evolution contributes to a broader shift in consciousness. We are each like individual cells in the body of humanity. When one cell heals or upgrades, the entire organism benefits. In a karmic simulation, every test is an initiation, every challenge an invitation to advance in awareness. If you view your life through this lens, you may start to welcome difficulty, not because you enjoy suffering, but because you recognize the potential it holds. When fears arise, you no longer run from them or simply endure them. You investigate them to discover what they reveal about your unconscious conditioning. When regrets bubble up, you don't sink into guilt. You transform them into lessons about accountability and healing. This approach turns every moment into an unfolding dialogue between you and the realm, between your current state of consciousness and the infinite possibilities that lie dormant within you. Ultimately, the power of this perspective rests in its capacity to unify. You no longer compartmentalize life into neat boxes labeled ordinary, or spiritual, material, or sacred. Instead, all experiences melt into a single continuum that is inherently spiritual, inherently meaningful, and inherently miraculous, if you choose to see it that way. Delving deeper, you might wonder about the role of graduation in this realm. If each of us is involved in a karmic simulation, is there a point where you finish the game, so to speak? Various spiritual traditions differ on the details, but many suggest that the ultimate goal isn't escape from the physical realm, but rather the realization of unity with the divine while still embodied. In other words, enlightenment or self-realization doesn't necessarily mean you vanish in a beam of light. It can mean living in continuous harmony with the flow of consciousness, no longer bound by fear or the illusions of separation. At this stage, the ups and downs of life may still occur, but they no longer shake you to your core. You move through experiences with grace and equanimity, serving as a beacon for others. This notion of graduation also challenges the idea that once you die physically, you automatically gain all the answers. Even in esoteric literature, there are hints that the journey continues on other planes of existence. Rather than waiting for death to reveal cosmic truths, the emphasis shifts to waking up now within the density of this reality. By doing so, you may bypass the need for repetitive karmic cycles, not through avoidance, but through transcendence. You master the lessons so thoroughly that there's no need to repeat them. And yet many souls return voluntarily to guide others out of compassion and a sense of interconnectedness. Such an interpretation frees you from the anxious question, what happens after I die? Instead, the focus turns to, what am I doing with the life I'm living now? Instead of looking to a future or an external authority for validation, you claim responsibility for your evolution. You realize that your spiritual journey is inherently self-directed, though you'll meet guides along the way, people or circumstances that illuminate the path. In this sense, the concept of the afterlife stops being a matter of speculation and becomes a lived experience of transformation. Meanwhile, the illusions don't necessarily vanish instantly. As you progress, you become more adept at spotting them. You develop an inner compass that detects when a belief or pattern is rooted in separation and fear rather than unity and love. This heightened discernment allows you to navigate life with less confusion. Challenges remain, but you see them for what they are, opportunities to refine your alignment with truth. Each time you pass through these fires of transformation, you emerge clearer, lighter, and more anchored in your core essence. And that essence, as so many mystics and near-death experiencers affirm, is timeless consciousness, an essence that was never born and will never truly die. While the idea of living in the afterlife right now may initially sound too fantastical or unsettling, it becomes more plausible the more you explore the convergent wisdom from spiritual teachings, scientific anomalies, and personal experience. It calls you not to abandon daily life, but to infuse it with renewed awareness, making every moment a portal to the sacred. You find that the line between life and afterlife dissolves, and in that dissolution, a more expansive understanding of existence begins to blossom in your very heart. Having journeyed through the notions of karmic loops consciousness beyond the physical and the transformative power of illusions, you might ask, what do I do with all this? The simple yet profound answer is live it. Embodiment is the final and ongoing step. All the theories, teachings, and insights remain theoretical until they become part of your lived reality. This means weaving these revelations into your habits, relationships, and ways of perceiving the world. It doesn't require perfection. It requires sincerity and willingness. Start by observing how you handle conflict, both internal and external. Instead of defaulting to anger or withdrawal, can you pause and remember the deeper context that you're in a realm designed for growth and that this person or situation may be mirroring something you need to address? Part of integration involves creating space to process your experiences. Life's pace can be relentless, bombarding you with to-do lists and deadlines. Yet if you don't pause to reflect, you risk losing the lessons in the flurry of activity. Whether you choose meditation journaling or nature walks, find a practice that suits your temperament and schedule. Make it a daily or weekly ritual to revisit significant events, emotional triggers, or key decisions you've made. Ask, how did this encounter serve my growth? What illusions did it reveal? What karmic patterns am I seeing emerge? And how am I responding differently than before? Over time, these reflections build self-awareness, helping you deepen your mastery of the afterlife environment. Another essential aspect is cultivating compassion, starting with yourself. In a realm as intricate and challenging as this one, you're bound to make mistakes. You might catch yourself repeating old patterns of fear or judgment. Instead of spiraling into guilt, recognize these moments as part of the curriculum. Apologize when needed, make amends, and step forward with renewed determination. The act of forgiving yourself radiates outward, making it easier to forgive others. This mutual forgiveness dissolves the thick walls of separateness that keep you locked in karmic battles. As you integrate, you may also find that your life's mission or purpose takes on new clarity. Perhaps you've always been drawn to healing work, art, teaching, or community building. In the context of living in the afterlife, these callings become more than mere career choices. They transform into avenues for soulful expression. Your work, your creativity, and your relationships become fields for demonstrating your expanded understanding. It's a profound responsibility, but also a joyous liberation to see that every gesture can become a prayer, every effort an act of service to the collective awakening. In this integrated life, synchronicities no longer feel random. They become part of the language you share with the universe. You start to see how events align or how strangers enter your life at precise moments to offer guidance or challenges. Instead of dismissing them, you cooperate with these signals. You begin to dance with destiny, aware that destiny itself is flexible, shaped by your conscious engagement. In this way, the boundary between divine grace and personal effort blurs, revealing that grace is always available to those who open themselves to it, and that effort flows more naturally when aligned with one's highest truth. As you navigate this path of integration, you might notice that your emotional landscape evolves. Emotions such as fear and anger don't vanish, but they lose their power to control you. You become more apt to observe them as passing weather rather than inescapable climates. The afterlife perspective reminds you that these feelings are teachers, not tyrants. Through consistent practice, you learn to hold space for them to feel them fully without letting them hijack your ability to act with mindfulness and love. For example, when fear arises, you can ask, what part of me still believes in separation or lack? How does this fear serve to highlight an old wound or a limiting belief? Rather than dismissing fear as irrational, you greet it as a signal that deeper work is needed. Simultaneously, positive emotions like joy or gratitude begin to flourish more spontaneously. When you see life as a purposeful, interconnected web, small moments of beauty, a sunrise, a warm conversation, a spark of creativity carry tremendous significance. These moments are glimpses into the harmonious design that underpins everything. By savoring them, you refine your emotional palette, training your heart to recognize the subtle current of grace running through daily existence. This isn't about blind optimism. It's about balanced realism, where you acknowledge the suffering of the world, but refuse to let it eclipse the abundant potential for growth and love. Integration also entails becoming increasingly aware of your thought patterns. Negative self-talk, destructive judgments, or rigid viewpoints can instantly lower your vibration, pulling you back into forgetfulness of your deeper nature. Through mindfulness, you catch these thoughts before they spiral. You challenge them, replace them, or simply observe them until they dissipate. Over time, this mental discipline creates a lighter inner atmosphere. You start to inhabit your own mind more comfortably, making it a sacred space rather than a battlefield. Another crucial factor is learning to tune in to the collective field. In an interconnected reality, your growth is never isolated. You might notice that as you work through your personal shadows, you become more sensitive to societal or global energies. News events or community issues can trigger a profound sense of empathy or frustration. Rather than feeling powerless, you learn to transmute those energies through awareness and intentional action. Whether it's volunteer work, activism, or simply sending prayers of healing, your contribution can be more impactful when you acknowledge that your inner shifts resonate outward. Finally, recognize that integration is not a linear trajectory. You may experience breakthroughs one week and setbacks the next. That doesn't mean you're failing. It means you're human. Each cycle of progress and regression serves to deepen your wisdom. Just as physical muscles grow through cycles of strain and recovery, so too does your spiritual capacity expand through challenges and rest. With a firm commitment to self-reflection and compassionate action, every stumble becomes part of a larger dance that ultimately leads you deeper into the truth of who you are, an eternal evolving consciousness, creatively navigating what you once called life, but now more aptly recognize as the afterlife. If you accept the notion of living in an afterlife designed for soul growth, the implications for community building and interpersonal relationships are profound. This goes beyond one-on-one connections into how you participate in social structures. Think about institutions, schools, workplaces, governments that often operate on fear-based models of authority or competition. As you evolve, you bring a fresh perspective into these environments. It might be as simple as introducing mindful practices to your team at work, or as ambitious as advocating for educational reforms that prioritize emotional intelligence and empathy. In each case, your understanding that everyone is grappling with karmic lessons invites you to approach systemic problems with both firmness and compassion. You become become less interested in assigning blame and more invested in collective healing. This shift can ripple through your family dynamics as well. Long-standing patterns of conflict may soften when you recognize them as karmic scripts replaying across generations. By consciously breaking the cycle through open dialogue, forgiveness, or setting healthy boundaries, you help your family system evolve. This might not be easy, as family is often where your triggers run deepest. But from the vantage point of the afterlife perspective, it becomes a sacred laboratory for transformation. You realize that you chose these relationships for a reason, and they hold the keys to some of your most pivotal lessons. Community and global crises, too, take on new meaning. Wars, pandemics, environmental disasters, while devastating, reveals systemic imbalances that call for collective awakening. You respond not out of mere survival panic, but from a place that asks, what can we learn here? How can we evolve our consciousness to address these issues at the root, while practical solutions and policy changes are necessary? They become more potent when fueled by an expanded awareness that sees every crisis as a karmic prompt. Those who hold this view often become catalysts for large-scale change, galvanizing communities to examine not just surface-level actions, but core beliefs and values. This is how the micro and macro levels of consciousness intersect. Moreover, the idea that you're already in the afterlife dissolves the fear that often underlies apathy. When people believe everything ends permanently, a death despair can set in easily, especially when faced with dire global challenges. But if you view this world as a continuum of consciousness, then your contributions extend beyond your current lifetime. The seeds of positive change you plant now may blossom in future timelines, either for you in another incarnation or for the collective inheritance of those who come after. This perspective infuses your actions with hope, not as a naive wish, but as a spiritual certainty that every mindful deed contributes to a larger tapestry of evolution. Engaging with community from this standpoint can be incredibly rewarding. You sense an invisible network of support among all who are awakening to the deeper truths. Even if you never meet them, you know they exist souls who, like you, have begun to question the illusion and live more consciously. This silent fellowship crosses geographical and cultural boundaries. It's a reminder that the afterlife realm is vast and inclusive, weaving together countless individuals, each playing a unique and vital role in the collective ascension of consciousness. Personal health and well-being also take on a new dimension when you recognize your body as the vessel through which you experience and transform within this afterlife setting. Instead of seeing health as merely the absence of disease, you may start to view it as an alignment of body, mind, and spirit. Physical symptoms, whether mild or severe, become messages rather than random afflictions. They prompt you to ask deeper questions. What is my body trying to tell me about my emotional or spiritual state? Have I neglected some aspect of my being that now demands attention? This holistic approach often leads to more balanced choices around diet, exercise, and stress management. Not from a place of fear, but from a place of love for the sacred instrument of your incarnation. Similarly, mental health ceases to be a taboo or a sign of personal weakness. You might recognize depression or anxiety as signals that your inner self is at odds with your environment or your thoughts. Seeking therapy, mentorship, or spiritual guidance becomes an integral part of your karmic curriculum, a proactive step toward clearing the inner clutter that keeps you from fully embracing your role here. You begin to see mental wellness as a dynamic dance. Sometimes you'll stumble, but each stumble can be a new lesson in self-awareness and resilience. At the spiritual level, practices like yoga, breathwork, or energy healing can be experienced as more than just techniques to relax. They become portals to deeper states of consciousness, ways to harmonize the physical, emotional, and psychic layers of your being. By refining these layers, you make your body-mind system a more receptive channel for the soul's wisdom. This alignment, in turn, influences how you interact with the simulation. The more coherent your inner state, the clearer the feedback from the realm and the more skillful your responses to its lessons. Yet no matter how aligned you become, it's crucial to remember that challenges will continue to surface. Illness, stress, or accidents aren't necessarily signs of failure. They might be advanced lessons pushing you to apply the spiritual insights you've already gathered. Observing how you react when life knocks you off balance can reveal how deeply you've integrated your understanding of living in an afterlife. Do you slip back into victimhood, or do you use the event as a catalyst to reaffirm your commitment to growth and compassion, both for yourself and others? In all this, humility plays a key role. It's tempting, once you gain some spiritual traction, to see yourself as somehow above the fray of ordinary life. But every human, no matter how enlightened, participates in the shared reality of impermanence and mystery. Maintaining a humble stance means acknowledging that there's always more to learn, more ways to refine your energy, and more hearts to touch. Even masters admit they're still students of the infinite. This humility keeps you open to further revelation, ensuring that the afterlife remains a place of continuous unfolding rather than a destination you conquer and leave behind. As you progress through these layers of integration, it's natural to experience a sense of awe at the intricate design of it all. You begin to see how your personal story connects to broader historical and cosmic narratives. Perhaps you discover that some of your deepest struggles mirror the collective wounds of your society, whether it's racism, sexism, or economic exploitation. When seen through the afterlife lens, these systemic issues aren't random injustices. They're glaring reflections of humanity's collective shadow waiting to be healed. At first glance, it might seem overwhelming, but remember that your individual work has a ripple effect. Every time you confront an internalized prejudice or practice generosity, you're helping shift the collective energy. At some point, you might reach a plateau where life feels calmer, more manageable, and you wonder if there's something more to do or learn. These plateaus are often resting points. They give you space to consolidate your gains and cultivate gratitude for how far you've come. Yet plateaus also tend to precede the next growth spurt. New challenges or opportunities will emerge, inviting you to refine your inner alignment further. This cycle of rest and expansion continues, mirroring the rhythms of nature itself. Just as the seasons change, your spiritual seasons fluctuate between assimilation of lessons and active transformation. Accepting this cyclical process can free you from the constant pressure to improve, allowing you to relish the journey in its full scope. Meanwhile, the question of what happens after death may morph into a gentle curiosity rather than an anxious fixation. You sense that whatever occurs will be a continuation of your consciousness, perhaps in forms or dimensions you currently can't fathom. And that's okay, because the present moment holds enough wonder and responsibility When fear does arise around mortality or the unknown, you can view it as another teacher reminding you to root yourself in the eternal aspect of your being that's already transcendent. This doesn't negate the sorrow of losing loved ones or the natural grief that follows, but it contextualizes it within a grander unfolding. You start to see farewells not as permanent endings, but as transitions in a vast network of existence. This shift can profoundly change how you approach legacy. Instead of obsessing over how you'll be remembered or what achievements you'll leave behind, you become more concerned with the energetic imprint you create every day. Are you consistently broadcasting judgment or kindness, despair or hope? This daily imprint in many ways becomes more influential than any physical monument you could build. If you're living in an interconnected afterlife, your vibration mingles with the collective field shaping realities yet to come. Ultimately, the day-to-day living of these truths weaves a tapestry of presence, humility, service, and open-ended wonder. You walk through life aware of the illusions, respectful of the challenges, and deeply appreciative of the preciousness of every moment. It's not a path of detached bliss. There are raw emotions, heartbreak and confusion, but these experiences are embraced as essential chapters in an ongoing odyssey of the soul. Through it all, you remember that the line between life and afterlife is an artificial one, and you stand with one foot in both worlds, bridging them with every conscious breath. In the grand finale of this exploration, you arrive at a realization that's both simple and infinitely profound. You are the creator, the explorer, and the witness of your own afterlife here and now. Every thought, emotion, and intention serves as a brushstroke on the canvas of your reality. The intricacies of karma, the illusions of separateness, and the mysteries of consciousness all converge in your daily choices. This realm, which once felt like a prison or a test, reveals itself as a sacred workshop where you craft the evolution of your soul. At this point, the question becomes, how will I live knowing that I'm already beyond the threshold of death? Will you approach each sunrise as a fresh wave of grace in which to practice compassion and courage? Will you look upon the strangers you meet as reflections of your own eternal essence? Will you treat your struggles as keys to deeper wisdom rather than dead ends? These are not rhetorical questions. They are the heart of spiritual inquiry, and how you answer them shapes the afterlife you experience moment by moment. You also come to see that every person you encounter, regardless of whether they share your beliefs, offers a unique facet of the divine puzzle. Some may challenge you, others may inspire you, and still others might pass briefly through your life, yet leave a profound impact. In this afterlife classroom, every interaction holds the potential to accelerate your awakening if you approach it with openness and curiosity. This isn't about forced positivity or denying genuine hurt. It's about recognizing the potential for alchemy in every meeting of souls. With these insights in place, your perspective on success transforms. External markers of achievement lose their absolute hold on you. Instead, success becomes synonymous with alignment. Am I living in a way that resonates with my highest understanding of truth, compassion, and authenticity? If yes, you feel a deep sense of fulfillment, regardless of external results. If no, you glean lessons from the discrepancy, adjusting your inner compass and trying again. This dynamic definition of success keeps you in perpetual dialogue with the intelligence of the realm, encouraging you to refine your resonance continually. In the end, this entire conversation about living in the afterlife now is less about convincing you of a doctrine and more about awakening a remembrance within you. Perhaps something in your heart quickened as you read these words, or maybe your mind is abuzz with questions and doubts. Either way, you're engaging with the central premise that there is more to your existence than the linear story you've been told. Lean into that sense of wonder. Let it guide you toward practices, people, and experiences that expand your awareness. The greatest gift of this perspective is the permission it grants you to be both fully human and profoundly transcendent, to walk the earth with reverence, heart open, and eyes turned gently toward the infinite. You stand at the threshold of your own, becoming prepared to shape not only your destiny, but also the collective experience of all who share this realm. Take a breath, feel the quiet hum of your beating heart, and step forward with courage. This is the afterlife you've been living all along, and now you hold the keys to navigate it with love, clarity, and awakened grace.